Who's the greatest father-daughter duo in gaming, and why is it Joel and Ellie from The Last of Us Part 1? Welcome back to Lost in Games Unscripted, the series where I talk about pretty much whatever comes to my mind at any given time. In this case, it happens to be father-daughter duos, particularly in a couple of different games that I've played. And mind you, I'm not a gamer, okay? I've played several games, but there's only a couple of pairs that really stick out to me in this conversation. The first one is Joel and Ellie, which might be one of the most famous ones from The Last of Us Parts 1, technically Part 2, I guess, and then the show, which I haven't watched the show. I haven't played Part 2, so we're only going to discuss it from the aspect of what we see in Part 1. The other one that really sticks out to me is Lee and Clementine from The Walking Dead, mostly season 1, but Lee does make some dream appearances in other seasons because of how close they were. And the question that comes to mind for me is which one of them is the greatest duo? Can that even be quantified? How would you calculate that? So that's really what I want to talk about in this video. Now, overall, when you're looking at Lee and Clementine versus Joel and Ellie, you got to look at, one, the circumstances of how they came to be paired up, the intentions with which they were, starting on their journey, and then the change in their relationship over the course of the journey. So we'll start with Joel and Ellie because that's where I started with. So Joel and Ellie is an interesting pair because for Joel, he had a real daughter, Sarah, before the cordyceps outbreak and all that kind of stuff. She died at the very beginning. So when he first meets up with Ellie, she is almost a surrogate. He's trying to avoid her being a surrogate. He doesn't want to have that attachment, but she is still in that because of her age and everything. But it's a pairing that is almost against his will. He doesn't want anything to do with trying to get her out of the city, trying to get her to the capital, trying to take her to the Fireflies. He wants nothing to do with any of that. He's really only doing it at the beginning because Tess insists, we need the weapons. It'll be a quick thing. We'll just take her out and we'll be done with it. And so he kind of reluctantly goes along. And when they get out and then Tess winds up getting killed, he promises Tess, okay, fine, I'll take her to the rest of the way or wherever. We'll find some Fireflies and try to get her there. Along the way, he's not a big fan. He doesn't really want to connect with her. He doesn't really care that much about her outside of her just being a package to be delivered. And so they go through the whole journey. And by the end of the journey, he actually does come around to kind of liking her and seeing her. He lets her into his life as that surrogate daughter, not replacing Sarah necessarily, which I think is his biggest concern. Emotionally, he doesn't want to replace Sarah, which that's a whole nother conversation. But he does allow her in as a surrogate, as a new daughter almost in a lot of ways. That being said, he still kind of puts his own desires above her well-being, above her desires potentially when it comes to, when he saves her from the Fireflies in the end. She doesn't even get the opportunity to make a choice. And then he lies to her about it. It would be one thing if he had just saved her and then said, hey, look, they were going to kill you. They weren't going to talk to you about it. They were just going to do it. And so I felt like I had to save you because I've come to care about you. He could have said that. And instead he lied to her and was like, oh no, they found other people. It's fine. They don't even need you. They've given up on a cure. He does it with such, he doesn't even mind lying to her in a way. He kind of does, you can kind of see it, especially in the updated version. There's a little bit of a twinge on his face, like, oh, please believe me type of thing. So they did at least put that in there. But again, he is still capable of doing that. So he hasn't come fully around. They're a fun pair to watch because of Ellie more than Joel, because Ellie does some fun stuff along the way. She learns how to whistle and she's collecting the comic books and she's enamored with the world around her. At the one point with the hotel that they're in, she's pretending like she's checking into a hotel, imagining what it would have been like, what the world would have been like before the cordyceps outbreak. So she kind of adds all of the fun. She is the one. It's more of a one-sided duo for a lot of the game, with Joel just kind of being there, trying to keep her alive long enough to deliver her, basically. when you look at Lee and Clementine, Lee, day one of the outbreak, he's on his way to jail, right? It's not a reluctant pairing though with him and her. With Lee and Clementine, it is he sees this little girl in need and he wants to protect her. He wants to keep her safe. Her parents are not there. The babysitter's dead. He just sees her as somebody to protect. He wants to take her and keep her safe, right? Throughout the story, they grow rather close, and it's over the course of 3 months or so, give or take, at the beginning of the outbreak. And they grow rather close, and he cares about her from the very beginning, but he grows to care about her even more, and she sees him as a stand-in for her dad in a lot of ways. He even looks similar to her dad if you look at the pictures, so it's not that far-fetched to see that she could see him as like surrogate dad type of situation. For Lee, he's never had a daughter, so he doesn't know that feeling. But by the end of season 1, he kind of has got that feeling a little bit, to the point where he wants to protect her. He wants to save her at all costs. And that includes he gets himself bit because he is blinded by the fact that like he sees her hat on the ground and he's not thinking straight. He's just rushing up because he's worried. And then he goes up regardless of his own safety. He doesn't care. He finds the stranger. He tracks him down through the city, finds Clementine, manages to get to her, and he will do whatever it takes, up to and including strangling the stranger, to save Clementine. And that is all willing. That isn't because he's trying to deliver her any specific place. In fact, you have the opportunity as the player to even tell her that, we don't necessarily know if we're even going to be able to look for your parents. They aren't trying to make it to Savannah. He tells her like, well, it would be nice if we could, but that Savannah isn't necessarily a goal until they get to the train. And then the train tracks just happen to lead to Savannah, where they might have some boats. So it's not like Lee has been tasked with protecting her. He could have walked away. He didn't have to. He could have said when she came on the walkie-talkie, or when she showed up, after he had to take out the babysitter, he could have been like, no, this isn't my thing. I'm not here for that. At any point, Lee could have just left her either on her own if he was cold-hearted, or he could have left her with anybody else along the way. He could have just snuck out in the middle of the night while everybody was sleeping after they got to the motel. During that 3-month stint they were at the motel. He could have, when Vernon offered to take her, he could have given her up to Vernon and said, oh yeah, okay, yeah, actually it would make sense that she would be better off with you. Any of those things could have happened, but instead he was like, no, I'm protecting her. This is basically a daughter to me now. And so in that way, it kind of makes Lee and Clementine a little bit better of a father-daughter type of pairing, because they really care about each other. Joel and Ellie, though, I think are the better duo in a lot of ways because of Ellie, and because of the fact that they weren't voluntarily put together, because of the fact that they had to forge that bond over time. And I while I haven't played part 2, I am aware that they show more of their bonding together. They show more of, Joel gets killed, but Ellie has fond memories of him. She's forgiven him for lying to her, right? And that bond was forged in fire. It was forged in a lot more difficult circumstances than Lee and Clementine's. Lee and Clementine's bond is a very good, strong bond formed over a few months, and you can see that they care about each other, but that was more of a natural pairing as opposed to Joel and Ellie, they couldn't be more different. Polar opposites. Ellie is hard-headed, stubborn. She's going to do her own thing. She doesn't give a flying, what. She's going to do her thing, and she's going to tell Joel like it is. She takes charge in certain circumstances. Joel doesn't care about anybody else. He has locked everybody else out of his heart. He has shed all of his emotions, and he's just like, factual. We're going to get this done. I got to deliver you. You're a package, blah, blah, blah. And all of that changes. And that's the biggest difference between the pairings, is the change in Joel and Ellie over time. Joel softens up. He actually starts to care again. Ellie starts to kind of give into that and understand that feeling as well, as opposed to Lee and Clementine, where it's just kind of a natural fit. Where they're both, Clementine's a little girl. She's very caring. She has been taught to be caring, as a lot of little kids, just they love unconditionally. And Lee is a very caring individual as well. The reason he was going to jail wasn't because he was a bad guy. It's because he made a stupid mistake because he was angry, And so for him, he's naturally caring. He never had that feeling. He didn't have that feeling to overcome that Joel had, where he had lost somebody and had to overcome that feeling. He was just naturally there for her. So I want to know your thoughts, though. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about which pairing is the better. And are there others out there that I maybe haven't seen or come across yet? Because I haven't had, I've played a lot of games, but I haven't played a lot of games where they have that father-daughter protagonist type of situation. And so these two stick out to me specifically for that from a gaming perspective. But are there other pairings out there that you think deserve honorable mentions or are better pairings than Joel and Ellie or Lee and Clementine? Let me know in the comments down below and share your thoughts as well on both Joel and Ellie and Lee and Clem and which one you think is the better pairing. Even if you haven't played both games, go check out the Philosophy and Ethics in Game series. I covered both of them. We talk about it at length. So that's all I've got for this one. I'll put the channel names, channel members, patrons, all that good stuff. I'll put that up here. If you want to join one of those things, you can get your name on the screen, early access to videos, all that fun stuff. Otherwise, if you subscribe to the channel, if you aren't already, hit the like button on this video. That helps out a lot. That helps tell the algorithm like, hey, this is worth pushing, right? But that's all I got for this one. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.